Hey golf people, it is finally that time. We are ranking the best irons of 2022 in all sorts of categories. I'm going to break down for you a number of benefits and features of each of these clubs, what I think is the best for each category. And of course, at the end of this video is the big reveal. I'm going to let you know which clubs stayed in my bag here for the second half of 2022. The categories that will be deciding the best irons of 2022 are in feel, forgiveness, workability, distance, and of course, value. Those 5 categories will be our main grading criteria. I'm gonna give you a first, second, and third for each of those categories, and I'm gonna tell you what I experienced, not only in the simulator, but out here on course. So let's talk about the clubs that were included, as well as a couple of ones that we left out, and I'm sure there will be some really nasty comments about that as well. First club here is going to be the Cobra Forged Tech. To me, this was a very innovative club here in 2022. I was really excited to get this one out on course. Beautiful, good looks, seemed to have the right specs, kind of like a TaylorMade P790, but yeah, made by Cobra, and I think Cobra's doing some fantastic things. The next club is going to be the Forged Tech X. Once I tried the Forged Tech, I wanted to see if I could get a little bit more distance and still have all the benefits that I really liked in the Cobra Forged Tech. The TaylorMade Stealth is going to be our third club. Last year I was playing the Sim 2s. I wanted to see if this would be an improvement on that club. Even though it's a game improvement club, it really works in the players category for me as well, because it has a lot of the characteristics that I like. Fourth club on the list is going to be a Mizuno, and I am unabashedly a Mizuno fanboy. I wanted to get a Mizuno in there, and of the releases that came out in the spring in the Pro line, I really thought the 223s were even better than the 225s. For someone with my level of game and what I'm looking for out of a club, I just thought the 223s were the best. JPX Hot Metal line, incredible line, but that was last year's line. We're sticking with 2022 clubs, so I went with the 223s. Next club on the list, Tour Edge Exotic C722. I absolutely loved the driver this year. It was right up there at the top. It was in the championship of our driver bracket, and I wanted to try the irons, and boy, they did not disappoint. Next club on the list was the PXG 0211, a summer release here in 2022, and a really nice upgrade to the last year's 0211 DCs, these X-Core 2s, just fantastic clubs. Next club on the list, a Dark Horse. This was one that was probably the most requested club review of the year. A lot of people asked me to take a look at a Finnish company called Tacomo, and I tried the 101 irons. I also had a look at the Rogue ST Pros. I've been playing the Rogue driver. The ST Pro, really the player's iron version in this line. A couple notable brands you probably see missing are going to be Titleist, as well as Ping. And while I did try those clubs this year, I tried them earlier in the year, and the Titleists, really great clubs with the T100Ss, really love those clubs. For me, just not enough distance. And in terms of the 200 and T300 categories, just didn't absolutely love those clubs, so I didn't take them out on course. With the Pings as well, I tested those. Those are very forgiving clubs. The Offset, just a little bridge too far, but two great brands in their own right, so that's why they were left out. Now, you might also be asking about the TaylorMade P790s. Well, of course, I included the Stealth when it comes to the TaylorMade family because those were the 2022 releases. The P790s came out in 2021, and that's the reason those ones were left out. Now, I took all these clubs out here on course, but first what we're gonna do is really get into the technical analysis, and let me break down for you what happened in the simulator with a 7-iron from each of these sets. All right, we're gonna start out here with the Rogue ST Pro. Absolutely beautiful clubs, but what do the stats tell us? Well, first off, as we go through these, by the way, we will be looking only at 7 irons, and I really tried to match my swing speed in my simulator. You'll see almost all of these clubs at 77 miles per hour swing speed. Some got up to 78, but we're all right there within 1 mile per hour of each other. So ball speed leaving the club, 104.4 miles per hour, spin at 4,023 RPMs. A little lower than I'd like to see, honestly, with a 7-iron, but the height was great. Peak height, 32 yards, carried 151 on average, and the distance with the rollout, 163 yards. Moving along here, we've got the Tour Edge Exotics C722, beautiful clubs in their own rights. I really love this matte finish, also with the high polished areas. It was in person a better looking club than in pictures. The loft of this club's also 30 degrees. Club head speed 77 miles per hour. Ball speed a little higher than our Rogues there, 105.5 miles per hour. The spin, much better. In fact, I think it's the second best spin of all of the clubs tested at 46.34 RPMs. Peak height, 32 yards, nice and high. The carry though, still really good, 153 yards in our rollout to 163. So these clubs just super straight, I should say, as well. And you'll probably hear more about this as the video goes on. Next up, we'll get into the Cobra Forge Tech. This is the regular Forge Tech version. Clubhead speed up just a mile per hour there at 78 miles per hour. Ball speed up to 107.9 miles per hour. Our spin was a very reasonable 43.50, and that's kind of the minimum I would like to be at personally. Peak height 31 yards, carried 157 in the air, rolling out to 171, so still great distance. Clubhead speed up there just a little bit, of course, there, but boy, these are some fantastic clubs. Felt so very good, and the looks, they look absolutely beautiful. Now, I think it'd be wise here to stay in the Cobra family because the Forge Tech X is the supposedly more forgiving and stronger lofted version of the Cobra Forge Tech. You can see the loft now at 27 degrees. This is the strongest lofted club of any of the clubs I tried here this year. Club head speed 77, ball speed a pretty blistering 108.6 miles per hour. The spin though, look how low that is, 38.71, just a little too low for me to be quite honest. Peak height 30 yards, carried in the air 159 yards, and the distance on average with the rollout 168 yards. So packed with distance, but you're definitely going to give up quite a bit of spin. Now I will say out on course, the stopping power not as bad as you would think just looking at spin numbers. It actually stops pretty well on course. I guess that descent angle is pretty good. And the peak height there is still 30, which is about, again, kind of minimum of where I'd want to be, but reasonable. But that's the difference there between the Cobra Forge Tech and Forge Tech X. Next thing we'll take a look at here is the PXG. Now again, this is the 2022 model, the X-Core 2 it's called, in the 0211 range. It replaced the 0211 DC, which is a great club in its own right, and you value shoppers may want to take a look at that one. But this just a little bit better in the specs category. Club head speed 78 miles per hour, my ball speed 106.1 miles per hour. The spin a very nice 45.15. Peak height a little lower than I'd like to see, just by a hair, but 29 yards. Carrying out to 152 yards in the air with a total rollout of 162 yards. Very solid club. I also loved this club out on course. Let's have a look next here at the TaylorMade Stealth. Now, as I mentioned, I had been playing the Sim 2s all last year, so very comfortable with this style of club from TaylorMade. Club head speed 78, ball speed 108 on the button. The spin a little lower than I'd like to see, and I saw this out on course, 4,039 RPMs on course, especially when you get into the 6.54 irons. I was getting just a little bit more rollout and having trouble holding a couple of the greens out there. Peak height 30 yards, carried 158 yards, total distance 172 yards. This is definitely, you can see the rollout there, that's what, 14 yards. This is the distance leader of the pack. Having a look at the Mizuno Pro 223s, again, this surprised me because I assumed that if you've seen the other clubs I was testing here, I would like the 225s better on paper, but in reality, testing them all out in the simulator, the 223s really came out on top for me. The loft there, 32 degrees, by the way. Club speed, 77 miles per hour. Ball speed, 104.1. Spin, a very nice 5108. I believe that's the highest spinning club of the ones I tested. The peak height, 31 yards. Carried 150 yards, so that spin is going to cut down a little bit on yardage as well as the loft there. It's also the highest lofted club at 32 degrees. Total distance with the carry, 158 yards. So that was the one thing, if you saw my review of these clubs, the one thing that really kind of hold me back potentially would be the distance. Apart from that, almost the perfect clubs though. Really loved the Mizuno 223s. The last clubs we're going to take a look at here are the Tacomo 101s. The loft is 30 degrees, so right there in the middle. Club speed 77 miles per hour, ball speed 106.4 miles per hour. The spin 43.56, that's pretty decent. just again at the lower level at least of where I'd like to be in terms of spin. The peak height, a very nice 32 yards in the air, carried 154, and the total width rollout there 165 yards. All around a very solid club and just felt really good. And I gotta say, just from the first strikes I took with this, even in the simulator, they just seemed to suit my eye, and I just seemed to make really good contact with these clubs more often than not. All right, guys, it's that time to start crowning some winners here, the best irons of 2022. When it comes to best feel, here are my top 3 choices. First and foremost, Cobra Forge Tech. This is the regular Cobra Forge Techs. I found these things to be absolutely buttery, even better, and it almost pains me to say it, than my favorite brand in terms of feel of all time, Mizuno. And they came in at number 2 here with the Mizuno Pro 223s. But getting back to the Cobra Forge Tech, absolutely incredible. The feedback I got off the clubs on course, being able to work those clubs, feel exactly where the ball hit the face. Honestly, nothing for me was better than those. As I mentioned, Mizuno Pro 223, absolutely incredible in its own right, but just a hair behind. And then coming in third place, also pretty much a surprise for me, the PXG 0211 X-Core 2s. I thought the 0211 DCs from 2021 were good in terms of feel. The X-Core even improved that. And for the only club on this top 3 that is not forged, incredible feel out of a cast iron club. PXG did a great job. Those are my top 3 guys. Now guys, moving on to our second category here, forgiveness. In first place for me is going to be the Tour Edge Exotics C722. These clubs were incredibly forgiving out on course. Yes, you're gonna sacrifice a little bit of workability, but if you hit the ball, it is pretty much going to fly straight no matter what. Incredible clubs in terms of forgiveness. That's my number 1 pick. Coming in second in this category is going to be the TaylorMade Stealth, a very forgiving club in its own right. These things are just as good and maybe even an improvement on last year's Sim 2s, which I really loved in terms of forgiveness as well. And in third place, we're gonna go with the Tacomo 101s, a very forgiving club, especially on mishits and especially on toe strikes. I've had a number of those playing with these clubs out on course, and boy, oh boy, are they forgiving as well. For me this year, a lot of clubs were forgiving, but these clubs really stood out. Now let's move on to our third category here, workability. Now, as I mentioned earlier, a forgiving club does not necessarily make for a workable club, so that's why this list is really completely different. Number 1 spot for me is going to be the Mizuno Pro 223s. These are the most player irons of all the irons I tested this year. Even the 225's a very workable club, but these 223s, really spectacular with its forged construction. Coming in at number 2 is going to be, you guessed it, the Cobra Forge Tech, also a forged club. Of course, that makes sense. In fact, in one spot on the course with these clubs, I hit really a miraculous shot, and I would go back and watch that video if you get a chance, because that was probably the shot of the year for me at least. Hitting an 8-iron underneath one tree and up over another one and drawing it right into the fairway. A really, really memorable shot for me. In third place is going to be the Tacomos. For as forgiving as they are, they're also a very workable club, and they work really well with my draw. Even when I hit the fade, I'm able to get a little left to right movement with it as well. So for me, a very workable club as well, guys. When it came to distance for me, the best irons of the year were number 1, the TaylorMade Stealth. That thing is just a rocket ship, but it's also 28 degrees. So, you know, there's obviously a trade-off. Number 2 is going to be the Forge Tech X, also a very pressed club there at 27 degrees, but boy did those take off, just a little bit behind those Stealths, not a whole lot. And number 3 for me is going to be the Tacomos. At only 30 degrees, these things still fly extremely long. They must have some foamy goodness inside that hollow body in order for these things to fly as well as they do, but they are very, very long. Now, our last category today is going to be value, and this is going to be a big one for a lot of you out there. Far and above the best value that I've seen in golf in a very long time is going to be these Tacomo 101s. Really the entire Tacomo line, incredible value. This company is doing some amazing clubs for a very reasonable price. Now, of course, that comes with a little bit of a cost. There's not as much customization available for these clubs. You don't have as many shaft options. They ship from Asia directly. The packaging isn't maybe the same as a really high-end manufacturer. They don't have the marketing dollars going into the tours and onto television commercials like some of the other big brands either. But in terms of performance and in terms of price, these things are absolutely incredible. For $459 to be able to get a set of irons, it's just unbeatable, guys. Number 2 in this category is going to be the PXG 0211 X-Core 2s. Now, to me, that is the most shocking story of 2022. It used to be that PXG was the rich man's golf club. No more. They've gotten much more reasonable at a retail price of $149 per club. And if you are a first responder or former military or current military, $109 per iron, which is the price that I got thanks to my wife's service. These things are an incredible value. And even at the $149 rate, still a really good value. Number 3 is going to be the Tour Edge Exotic C722, a company that really just packed with value from their driver line, which is extremely amazing and affordable, all the way down to these irons. Everything Tour Edge Exotics does is first class, and the prices are great as well. Okay guys, it's reveal time. I'm gonna take you over to my bag here. I'm gonna show you which clubs I went with. They are absolutely the best clubs for me that I could find. And these are the ones I'm gonna be taking to Ireland on my upcoming golf trip. It's been put together by the guys at My Golf Group Travel. It's an incredible itinerary of some of Ireland's best golf, including the #1 course in the country, Ballybunion, #2 in Lahinch. We're gonna go to Tralee, the Killarney Golf and Fishing Club, and we're gonna be checking out Trump Doonbeg. It's an incredible trip. I can't wait to go on it. And these are the clubs that I'm going to be taking, guys. You ready? Did you guess it? I'm going with the Tacomo 101s. Guys, for me, these were value packed. They've got forgiveness, they've got distance, they've got stunning good looks, and boy do I hit them well. The first time I took these out for a full round, I shot 2 over par, my best round in a very, very long time. Something about these clubs is just absolutely magical, and you cannot argue with the price. If it's the one you were thinking, let me know down below. If you guessed something else, I'd love to know that too, and I'd love to know what's in your bag, so leave a comment down below. Guys, I hope you enjoyed this episode. If you're not already subscribed, hit subscribe now, and I'll catch you back here very soon on another edition of Let's Play Thru.